Most of us grow up believing that eggs are the perfect food, compact, rich in protein, packed with essential vitamins, and able to slide seamlessly into breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Scrambled, boiled, poached, or fried, they're not just a staple, they're a tradition. But here's a truth that rarely makes the headlines. The very food we praise for its benefits can quietly work against us, especially after 60, when digestion slows, immunity weakens, and the body's tolerance for small dietary stressors becomes, well, not so tolerant. You see, it's not the egg itself that's the problem. It's the way we treat it, how we cook it, how we store it, and most importantly, how we assume something as familiar as an egg could never do us harm. But assumptions don't protect you from what your body can't process. And for millions of older adults, simple mistakes with eggs are silently contributing to inflammation, brain fog, fatigue, and even long-term damage to the heart and gut. Let me tell you about Sarah, 72. She loved her over-easy eggs every morning. Runny yolks, crispy whites, cooked fast on high heat with a splash of canola oil. It was her ritual, her comfort, until she began experiencing chest tightness and indigestion that she brushed off as age. What she didn't realize was that she was repeatedly consuming oxidized cholesterol and damaged oils, substances her body could no longer process efficiently. It wasn't age, it was how she was treating her food. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a wake-up call. Because food doesn't just nourish, it also communicates. And when the body is sending signals, like fatigue after meals, bloating, or that creeping discomfort in the gut, we often miss them. Not because we're careless, but because we think what we're doing is healthy. And in the case of eggs, the line between help and harm is thinner than we'd like to admit. This series will walk through the most common egg mistakes older adults make, starting with overcooking and cooking in harmful oils, all the way to storing them wrong or eating them raw without understanding the risks. But unlike a list of don'ts, this is a journey back into the kind of awareness that protects the body without stripping away the joy of eating. It's about learning not just what to avoid, but what to embrace. It's about understanding your body's relationship with food, especially in the later decades of life. Because eggs can still be part of your vitality story, but only if you know how to handle them. Let's start with one of the most common and overlooked mistakes: overcooking eggs. It seems harmless, right? You want that firm white, that golden brown edge, that crispy bottom that crackles slightly when you bite in. But what you don't see is the chemistry behind the sizzle. At high temperatures, eggs, especially the yolks, become chemically unstable. The delicate fats inside oxidize. Cholesterol, which is naturally present in yolks and harmless when intact, starts to degrade. And those fluffy proteins that were once so bioavailable, they begin to denature into forms your body no longer recognizes efficiently. You might still absorb them, but at a cost: low-grade inflammation, oxidative stress, and nutrient loss. This isn't just about nutrients disappearing, it's about new compounds forming. Oxysterols, for example, are oxidized cholesterol byproducts linked to artery damage. When Sarah fried her eggs daily on high heat, she didn't know she was creating the very thing she was trying to avoid: a breakfast that could gradually clog her arteries, not support her strength. Think of it this way. Imagine burning a letter before reading it. The message is still there, but now it's fragmented, unreadable, and full of smoke. That's what happens when you cook your eggs with heat that's too aggressive. You're not just changing texture, you're transforming nutrition into inflammation. Now contrast that with James. At 75, he began experimenting. Instead of frying, he learned to poach his eggs. The yolk stayed intact, the white gently set. He didn't just notice the flavor was smoother. He felt different, less heavy afterward, more energy in the afternoon. It wasn't magic. It was chemistry working for him, not against him. It's not that you can't cook your eggs. It's that you shouldn't incinerate them. Medium-low heat, gentle movement, and respect for timing can preserve their gifts instead of destroying them. This is especially true if you're cooking with oils, and we'll get to that in part 3. But for now, remember, every time you approach the pan, you're not just making breakfast. You're shaping your body's internal story. High heat writes it in fire. Gentle heat writes it in light. Now let's talk about the pan's partner in crime, oil. Because no matter how careful you are with temperature, if you're using the wrong fat, you're still losing the battle. It's one of the most dangerous mistakes people over 60 make in the kitchen. Not because it looks dangerous, but because it feels familiar. You reach for what you've always used: the yellow bottle, the vegetable oil, the light blend someone told you was healthy back in the 90s. But here's the truth. Most industrial seed oils, canola, soybean, corn, safflower, are chemically unstable. When heated, especially above medium, they release compounds like aldehydes and trans fats that silently corrode your body's inner environment. And what do they hit first? The linings of your blood vessels, the clarity of your cells' communication systems, the quiet stability of your joints. You don't feel it immediately, but it adds up, like rust on a hinge. You wake up stiffer, foggy, more reactive to food. Let's rewind to Robert. At 68, he still used a splash of canola oil every morning to fry 2 eggs. Then he started noticing swelling in his fingers, digestive issues, a fog that crept in after breakfast and lingered into early afternoon. His doctor suggested turmeric. Robert tried it. Nothing changed. It wasn't until he spoke to a dietitian who asked a simple question: "What oil are you using?" that the light bulb flicked on. He switched to avocado oil, then ghee, then, on weekends, a touch of real butter from grass-fed cows. The swelling didn't vanish overnight, but the fog began to lift. His breakfast no longer sabotaged his clarity. So ask yourself, what fat are you pairing with your eggs? Because oils don't just cook, they coat your cells. If your breakfast leaves you drained, inflamed, or groggy, it might not be the egg. It might be the company it kept in the pan. The fix is simple, yet powerful. Choose oils that match your biology. Avocado oil has a high smoke point and heart-healthy fats. Olive oil, especially added after cooking, adds antioxidants and stability. Ghee and butter? They're ancient allies when used mindfully. Eggs are only as good as what surrounds them, and when your morning begins with inflammation, your entire day carries its weight. We often think eggs are safe because they're in the fridge. That smooth shell feels like armor. It looks clean, stored neatly in a carton marked with a date, and so we assume everything inside is still pure. But here's the catch. Freshness isn't just about time. It's about temperature, air exposure, and the invisible breakdown of what lies beneath the shell. When eggs are stored too long, even in a refrigerator, their protective coating begins to weaken. The tiny pores in the shell, meant to let in just enough air to keep the egg alive while in nature, become highways for bacteria and oxidation when refrigeration is inconsistent or too prolonged. The yolk loses its integrity. The white gets runnier. But more importantly, those vital nutrients, like biotin, choline, and B vitamins, begin to degrade, quietly lowering the egg's value while increasing your body's burden to digest and detox. And here's where it matters even more. As we age, our stomach acid declines. That acid isn't just for breaking down food, it's the first line of defense against bacteria. A younger body might handle a slightly off egg with nothing more than a shrug. But for someone in their 70s or 80s, that same egg can mean an upset stomach that lasts all day, or worse, a stealthy pathogen that lingers in the gut lining, draining energy quietly week after week. Lillian learned this the hard way. She'd bought a bulk pack of eggs on sale. 2 weeks later, she was still working through them, even though a few looked duller, their whites spreading too thin when cracked. Then came the digestive symptoms, mild at first, then persistent. Nausea, bloating, a strange sensitivity to other foods. Her doctor chalked it up to age. But it wasn't age, it was decay. Silent, refrigerated decay. What's the fix? First, buy small batches. Think of eggs like fresh produce, not pantry items. Use within a week or two, not just before the printed date. Store them consistently at the back of the fridge, not the door where temperature fluctuates. And when in doubt, do the float test. Place an egg in a glass of water. If it stands upright or floats, toss it. If it lies flat, you're in the clear. You don't have to fear eggs. But you should treat them with the same care you'd give any powerful food, because once that shell is compromised, it's not breakfast anymore. It's a gamble. The egg itself? Almost perfect. Rich in choline for brain health, loaded with protein, a clean fat profile. But then, we reach for the salt shaker, then the bacon, then the white toast with margarine, and by the time the plate is full, the egg is no longer the hero. It's just a bystander to an inflammatory story. This is one of the most subtle traps of all. Not the egg, but what we eat with it. Picture this. George, 74, always started his day with eggs. He thought he was doing everything right. Doctor said get protein, he'd repeat proudly. But his plate told a different tale. 2 eggs fried in seed oil, a few slices of bacon curled up beside them, toast slathered in spreadable margarine, the kind marketed as heart healthy, and a tall glass of orange juice that packed more sugar than a soda. And George? He was tired by 11 a.m., sluggish. His legs ached, his blood pressure climbed, and after every physical, he was told to cut back on fat or watch the cholesterol. But the truth was, it wasn't the egg that was betraying him. It was the company it kept. Here's what most people don't realize. It's the combination that causes harm. Eating eggs with highly processed meats introduces nitrates and saturated fats that create inflammation when combined with oxidized cholesterol from overcooking. Add in simple carbs like white toast and sugar, and your insulin spikes. Your arteries feel the hit, your brain fogs, your gut bloats, and slowly, those eggs, meant to nourish, become complicit in harm they never intended. The solution? It's not to give up eggs. It's to surround them with allies. Swap bacon for greens or mushrooms, sautéed in olive oil. Replace white toast with sprouted grain bread, or skip it altogether and add avocado. Ditch the juice for a full glass of water with lemon. Suddenly, the same egg, gently poached or softly scrambled, is part of a meal that energizes instead of sedates. Your plate is a team. The egg might be the star, but the supporting cast decides the story. We're told eggs are a perfect protein, and they are. But perfection depends on balance. And when we take something good and overdo it in the name of health, we often end up reversing the benefit. This final mistake is the one most people don't even see coming. It's the idea that if 1 egg is good, 3 must be better. That more protein equals more strength, especially as we age. But here's where the problem lies. Our kidneys, our liver, our already overworked digestive systems. You see, By the time we reach 70, our bodies no longer process excess protein the way they used to. The enzymes aren't as efficient, the kidneys aren't as fast, and that beautiful yolk, loaded with fat-soluble vitamins, starts to tip from nourishing to burdensome when we pile it on. It wasn't the egg that was wrong, it was the dosage. Take Dorothy. In her 60s, she switched to a high-protein diet to stay strong. Breakfast, 3 eggs. Lunch, chicken breast. Snack, protein shake. She thought she was doing it right until the labs told a different story. Elevated urea, rising creatinine, gut issues, fatigue. It wasn't because her diet was bad. It was because her body needed less, not more. Protein is essential, but only in doses your body can absorb and utilize without stress. For many over 65, 1 egg in the morning is plenty when paired with fiber, healthy fats, and hydration. A second egg? Fine, occasionally, but 3 or 4 every single day? That's a load your kidneys feel, quietly, persistently, until one day, something cracks. Instead of more eggs, try more balance. Rotate. One day, an egg with greens and lentils. Another day, Greek yogurt with flax. Another, oats with walnuts and berries. Variety gives your body a break. It keeps your system guessing, not grinding. And remember, eggs aren't magic. They're a tool. And tools are only powerful when used wisely. Eggs were never the enemy. But like many good things, they can become harmful when we disconnect from how our bodies truly feel, especially after 60, 70, or 80. It's not about fear. It's about attention, about tuning in to the silent shifts in digestion, inflammation, and energy. We ruin eggs when we overcook them, when we store them too long, when we smother them in oils, nitrates, sugar, and shortcuts, when we assume that more is always better. But the truth is, the egg is still one of the most powerful, compact sources of nourishment we have, if we treat it with respect. What if your next egg wasn't just breakfast, but a reflection of everything you've learned about slowing down, simplifying, and giving your body the quiet support it's been asking for? What if breakfast wasn't rushed, but intentional? A pause, not just a pattern. The lesson isn't to give up eggs. It's to give up the habits that quietly made them harmful. And in doing so, you reclaim something bigger, the ability to nourish your body with confidence, not confusion. Because it's never been about the food alone. It's about how you live with it, how you begin your day, with presence, with wisdom, and with one simple egg cooked right.